Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Jack Hagel. U.S. Senator Thom Tillis surprised Republicans Sunday when he said he wouldn't seek re-election next year. The decision has underscored the dangers Republicans face when opposing President Donald Trump, and it raised all kinds of questions about who might run to replace the North Carolina Republican. It also revealed why Republicans are suddenly more hopeful about their prospects to win Tillis' seat in the 2026 election. WRAL state government reporter Paul Specht has been covering the fallout, and he joins us now. Paul, busy few days.
You could say that, that's for sure.
Our state senior senator, Thom Tillis, issued a statement Sunday saying that he wasn't seeking re-election. What was his reasoning behind that?
You know, it was a long statement, but in it, he basically says that there's no more room in today's political environment to operate as an independent thinker. He alluded to other senators who retired, chose not to run again, because they face so much opposition for breaking with their parties. And in Tillis' case, you know, he has questioned Trump's decisions for years now. Years ago, he said that he opposed Trump's decision to take military funding and use it for a border wall. He worked across the aisle with Democrats to, you know, secure same-sex marriage rights for people if the Supreme Court case Obergefell is ever overturned. That's the ruling that granted same-sex marriage rights. And he also worked with former Senator Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat, on pathway to citizenship for immigrants who are here illegally. So he had this already in his background. And in fact, the North Carolina Republican Party censured him in 2023. Now, come this year, we saw reports of Tillis, at least behind the scenes, disagreeing with some of Trump's nominees for his cabinet. But most recently, Tillis came out and said he opposes this so-called big, beautiful bill, Trump's tax and spending bill, because it would push hundreds of thousands of North Carolinians off Medicaid. And that was the nail in the coffin.
And that's when Trump started saying, I'm going to start thinking about endorsing maybe other people for your seat, right?
That's right. Tillis dropped out on a Sunday. The day prior, Trump had posted on Truth Social, hey, a lot of people, something to the effect of, hey, a lot of people are asking me whether or not we'd entertain challengers to Tillis in the Senate race. Stay tuned. You know, just sort of the signal to Tillis like, hey, you better fall in line, buddy. And from what we can tell, Tillis was just not going to do that.
So the messaging maybe behind his decision to not seek re-election perhaps wasn't terribly surprising, but the fact that he dropped out kind of was. Now, his seat had already kind of been seen as one of the most vulnerable in the country. Help us understand sort of what is the breakdown in the Senate, how important is this seat to Republicans, and maybe explain the kind of tightrope that he had to walk in this purple state.
So Democrats need to pick up 3 seats in the next election to even out the playing field in the Senate. They've got about 47 people. They need to gain 3. North Carolina is seen as their best chance of the states that are on the map in the midterms, at least in terms of the U.S. Senate, right? It's, you know, Democrats haven't won a U.S. Senate seat here since 2008. However, since then, they've won multiple statewide races, including just last year, where they won, you know, the governor's office. They flipped the lieutenant governor's office. They flipped a seat for state education superintendent, and on down the list. They won the attorney general's office again. So whenever this happens, Democrats get optimistic about winning federal races, whether it's the U.S. Senate or the presidency. And so with Tillis, you know, the fact that the base had long been upset with him, and he looked like he was going to run for re-election, and midterms are historically not great for the party in power, Democrats saw him as the best opportunity to flip a seat in the U.S. Senate.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear who might be interested in running for the Republican nomination to fill Tillis' seat and how Democrats are responding. Stick around. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with WRAL state government reporter Paul Specht about North Carolina's open U.S. Senate seat in the 2026 election. Paul, Tillis makes his big announcement on Sunday. He's dropping out. And then immediately there are a gajillion people mentioned as possible replacements. You spoke with some party insiders, some real operatives, and came away with 3 likely contenders. What did you learn?
Right. And we spoke with strategists based in North Carolina, based in Washington, like you mentioned, party operatives, spokespeople, even elected officials. And there was one theme that they presented over and over again, and that's that Trump is going to pick a loyalist. His daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, who lives in Florida, will get first dibs because she's been long rumored to want to run for elected office. Now, whether she will is another story. But that
she's from North Carolina, too.
That's right. She's from North Carolina. She's from Wilmington. She graduated from NC State. And she currently has a show on Fox News. And last year, she was a co-chair of the Republican National Committee. So, she's a great option. And insiders told us, man, it would be great to have the actual Trump name on the ballot. That means a lot. It may not seem like it means a lot, but it does. The people who study behaviors of voters say that it matters. So Trump is going to go to her first and say, do you want to do this? And if you move to North Carolina, I will back you. You'll have the nomination. It's all yours. Whether she wants it, they don't know. She has 2 young children. She may not want to uproot their lives from Florida. After that, if she doesn't want it, we're told that the next in line for consideration would be Michael Whatley. If that name sounds familiar, he used to be the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party for 5 years, from 2019 to 2024. Then last year, he was appointed a co-chairman, along with Laura Trump, to the Republican National Committee, and he's a close confidant and ally of Trump's. Now, Whatley didn't respond to our calls or when we reached out and asked, hey, is this true? Is this possible that you might seek this out? But people in North Carolina seem to think that he would want to run for elected office. Now, if it's not Laura Trump, if it's not Michael Whatley, that opens it up to a bunch of people who would love to advocate for Trump's agenda in the U.S. Senate. A lot of people will lobby for that behind closed doors. One name that emerged again and again and again as being the most aggressive in pursuing this endorsement from Trump is Pat Harrigan. He is a freshman congressman from out west. He represents an area sort of between Winston-Salem and Charlotte. He's a combat veteran, graduate of West Point, and a vocal supporter of President Trump. People think that if it's not Laura Trump and it's not Michael Whatley, it'll likely be Pat Harrigan. Of course, Trump is known for changing his mind. So not saying it will be him, but that's who insiders expect.
Incumbents usually do pretty well in elections, but Republicans think their chances are actually better without Tillis on the ballot, right?
Well, that's what they're saying. On the inside, I mentioned that Tillis, hasn't been a favorite of the base for some years now. He's upset them with various votes. And Republican insiders said, they were worried that if Tillis was the nominee, even with Trump's support, even with Trump's endorsement, that fewer Republicans might show up in the midterms. Again, midterms, historically bad for the party in power. Tillis not popular within the Republican base. And if they don't show up, that has big implications for people down the ballot because, as any political strategist will tell you, the name at the top of the ballot is what draws people out to vote.
There's some high stakes down the ballot, right?
Oh, yeah. This upcoming year in North Carolina, it's the U.S. Senate race, it's a state Supreme Court race, and then it's the state legislature. And, Republicans control the General Assembly right now. They have a majority in both the House and the Senate. If they pick up one seat in the next election in the House,
right? Yeah.
Then they have a supermajority. And if Democrats beat them back, so to speak, then they can be a little more comfortable in supporting the governor's vetoes of controversial legislation. So the name at the top really matters, and Republicans were worried that Tillis, couldn't bring the people out.
Now, what do Democrats make of all this? Are they changing their strategy in any way now that Republicans feel a little bit better about their odds?
They say that they were confident in their abilities to win, even with Tillis on the ballot. And of course they're going to say that, of course. But one thing that Anderson Clayton, the chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, told me today was she thinks it'll be a little easier to beat Republicans next year. Tillis has this record of working across the aisle. Whether we want to call him a moderate, that's sort of subjective. Democrats would say he's not. Republicans would say he probably is. But winning North Carolina, you tend to need swing voters in these suburban areas, and Tillis may have been able to get those. He's shown he could, and back in the 2020 election. Without him on the ballot, Republicans are probably going to pick a Trump loyalist, as I mentioned. Well, what does that mean for the Democratic strategy? Oh, that makes it so much easier for them to say that the Republican nominee is a rubber stamp for Trump, and he'll vote for any extreme legislation that Trump supports. And, there are a lot of things that, that Trump has done that Democrats oppose. So they think this will make it easier for them in next year's race.
Now, what about Tillis? He's got a few months left in the Senate. He voted against Trump's tax and spending bill. What are you going to be watching for in his final few months in office?
In his statement, Tillis said that he looked forward to the opportunity to calling balls and strikes. Now, for a long time, people have suspected that Tillis opposed many of the things that Trump has put forward, but swallowed his pride and voted for them anyway. We'll be watching to see just how many of Trump's policy positions, how many of his bills, how many of his decisions Tillis speaks out about. People wonder, does he oppose Trump a little? Does he oppose him a lot? For a long time, people have speculated that Tillis has done what he needed to do to get reelected. Now he doesn't have to worry about that. So it'll be interesting to see where he picks his battles. Medicaid is obviously the biggest one right now because hundreds of thousands of North Carolinians could get kicked off of their health insurance in the coming years. But we'll wait and see. I mean, Tillis has, a year and a half to redefine his legacy.
Do you think this is the last we'll see of Thom Tillis? Is he going to ride off into the sunset, or do you see him sticking around in politics?
That depends on where voters are in 2028. Right now, as it stands, you have to do what Trump says in order to get his endorsement, which is extremely powerful in the Republican Party. Right now, I would say he does not have a future. But let's imagine a world in 2028 where Trump and Republicans on Capitol Hill have passed a lot of unpopular bills. Maybe there's an appetite for someone who stood up to Trump, who was more of an independent thinker, to run for a statewide office in North Carolina. Maybe this is a hypothetical, and it's a long shot, but in 2028, Josh Stein's term as governor will be up. We've seen that it takes someone who can thread a needle in North Carolina that has a strong record of voting for conservative policies, which Tillis did. He would argue in Washington, but everyone knows he at least did in Raleigh as the former House Speaker of the state, for the state House of Representatives. There could be a world where he tries to run for that seat, to challenge Stein for the governorship in 2028. Like I said, right now, the environment is not favorable for him to do that. But you know what? Maybe he gives it a shot in 2028. We'll see.
Going to be an interesting few months and years ahead. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
That's WRAL State Government reporter Paul Specht. For all of our reporting on the 2026 Senate race, go to the NC Capitol section of WRAL.com. I'm Jack Hagel. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.